Welcome, welcome, welcome to the first episode of Peace and Plenty in 20. I am so excited for this, you guys. This is something I've been wanting to do for a few years now, and I finally made it happen. We're here. I don't know how to explain it other than I feel alive. I feel that energy. I feel like my heart is growing. You know, like the Grinch when his heart grows however many sizes. That's how I feel. And I think that's the perfect feeling for me to explain why I'm doing this show for y'all. My hope, my objective, my reason for doing Peace and Plenty in 20, this brand new show on YouTube, is exactly because I want you to experience in life this feeling of being alive and excited and enthusiastic and feeling like you have so much that you want to do and share and give. And we all have that inside of us. And that is exactly why I have finally put this show together for you. I want to remind you that there's so much more to being alive than, unfortunately, the mundane things that we have to do day in and day out, right? And one of the things for me personally that I have worked so much on the past few years, and I'm still working on, I am constantly working on myself every day. I believe that if we're not, what's that phrase? If we're not growing, we're dying. I have always loved to be a student. I love being a teacher. There's just so much to learn, and I want to embrace that every day. But we need to try to figure out, how do we strike a balance, right? Of all the things that we want to be. Like for me, and probably this is going to sound familiar to many of you, I want to be a really great mom and wife. I want to take care of my physical health and my mental health. I love having my own business and growing it. I am also proud to help my husband run his business. Um, I like being able to be there for my mom and my in laws and family who have given us so much and been there for us. So, doing all of those things makes it so easy to lose ourselves in this season of our lives, in the season of caretaking, right? We're human, it just happens. And 5 years ago, I saw it happening to me. And I'm sharing this with you today because I feel like this first episode is really me sharing with you why peace and plenty and why now, right? So, yeah, it was about 5 years ago. My dad's health was declining, and I knew we were going to lose him, which was incredibly difficult. At the same time, I had three teenage girls. I was, middle school and teenage, um, which is just as bad, as many of you know. Trying to navigate their social, emotional, and academic needs. I was in my own time of transition with my career, trying to make a pivot. My body and my hormones were changing. I wasn't taking great care of my health, amidst all of these stressors. And, I had a lot of knowledge, like what I should do. I have made changes and growth in many of those areas of what I call the wheel of life before. But it just wasn't something I could do on my own. We can have all the knowledge in the world, my friends, and it doesn't equate to making change or to inspiring true transformation. Even if you really want it, as much as I wanted these changes, there was just too much on my calendar and too much on my heart and too much on my mind, and I knew I needed support. And I also needed some sort of systems. I needed something in place, right? So everything I had tried in the past, though, whether it was diets or, different books and programs, um, they failed me. And I'm saying it that way intentionally because I don't look at it that I failed. And if you have had this experience, I'm going to encourage you to reframe that thought and that statement as well, that you didn't fail the plan or the system. It failed you. It didn't give you what you needed. And when I first realized this was when I discovered coaches and the power of coaches. So ironically, I had worked, prior to this pivot, I had worked as a coach, a literacy coach and a teacher coach, but I never really thought about seeking out a coach for my life or for my health or for my business. And let me tell you, when I did, that's when my entire life changed. That's when real change happened for me. I have to do I'm going to do a little shout out for a moment because I think it's so important that you hear about my experience and also that you recognize how valuable and how worth the investment having a coach is. So I'm going to start from my very first coach back 5 years ago, during this time that I'm talking about, when I was trying to make a transition. My coach, Marielle, she's the one that first really helped me to go deep and get to know myself and learn my archetype. That was really cool. And really hone in, what were my unique gifts and skills? What do I have to offer others, the world, right? When I was teaching in the classroom, that was very straightforward, what I was bestowing and what I was offering. But now that I was, making a transition, I was writing a blog for a magazine, then I was writing a blog, and then I wound up going into coaching. And she really helped me with that. And she was the first one, and I've done this with all my coaches since then, but she was the first one that introduced me to really visualizing what I wanted for myself and for my future and practicing stepping into that and actualizing that. And then my coaches, Carrie Peters and Stacey Morgenstern, from the Health Coach Institute, were both very important mentors to me. They taught me the power of, getting really curious and reframing my thoughts, and also recognizing and challenging my outdated stories, my outdated beliefs, right? And then my coach, Allie, taught me tools to hack my ADHD brain and learn that I could actually be productive, and that my, neurodivergent brain is actually quite creative. And when we harness it properly, we can really learn to do some cool things and customize systems. And I created a block schedule for my calendar that works for me now, and different routines that really I was able to customize for me. I have to give a shout out to Emily. She's not necessarily a coach, though she does coach me. She is a certified women's health nurse practitioner. I want to be sure I said that right. Board certified. So she is the first medical professional. I take that back. I've had really, really great experiences with doctors, but this experience with Emily, I joined a year-long program with her for women's health, and really taking a look at everything going on in my body, from my hormones to my weight to my inflammation to my gut to everything in between. Emily really honored my intuition in my body. I said she really allowed me to trust in the fact that, I know myself, I know my body, but she was also able to challenge me. And that's something that a good coach does, is, challenge me a little bit to say, hey, I'd like you to think about X, Y, and Z, because this is some research that I've done, and these are some things that are really going to help a midlife woman with her health and wellness. Um, so that's been a wonderful experience. And then, of course, my longtime, wonderful, amazing current business coach, Stacy, who has really helped me build Peace and Plenty and build my business into one that I love. I am in love with the business I've created, which then in turn has brought me and continues to bring me clients that I love. Stacey has helped me recognize how to build the type of business I want, which is what she calls, and I call, a heart-centered business. That's where it comes from. It's all about relationships. It's all about building trust and really connecting and hearing other humans, in this case for me, women, and really listening between the, getting to read between the lines and empowering them and guiding them and just getting to be able to be their partner on this journey. So one of the reasons, obviously I just want to give a shout out because these amazing coaches have changed my life and empowered me to step into my true calling. And I wanted to point them out because without having all of those experiences, that collective experience, I don't know that I'd be here today on YouTube creating a show and feeling like I could have something to offer and that I could serve women in the way that I'm able to. And that's the point I want to make to you all, is that you can live whatever life you want to live. And I know that sounds a little bit like pie in the sky and, just like a big, sweeping statement, but I really mean that. I truly mean it. Because I think, I know firsthand that it's hard to do that, okay? Like, to just say to someone, you can have what you want and do what you want and be what you want. That's what I wanted 5 years ago. But is it difficult to do? Sure. Aside from all the roles that we have, right? Like being caretaker, being chef, being chauffeur, being a therapist, our roles go on and on and on. So aside from having all that going on, we're also up against ourselves. We're up against what I like to call our default settings, right? Like, when you get a new cell phone and it comes with the default settings, that's how we've been programmed from a really, really young age, from a really long time ago. And that's not easy to contend with. That's our programming. Those are our stories that just keep us operating every day on autopilot. So I know it's not easy. And I'm very transparent. If you've seen me before or heard me on Instagram, I'm very transparent and open about my own challenges with what I like to call the good girl syndrome. Always doing everything the way you're supposed to and by the book and just being a good girl. I still struggle with, but I've made great strides in perfectionism and having everything done right. Like even when I'm filming this, even recording my first episode, being okay with tripping over my words or, not having it be the perfect first episode. I've come a long way, letting that go. But before I did let that go, that really tripped me up. It really holds a lot of us back. People pleasing, right? Always worrying about everyone else and making sure that everyone else is okay and happy. Those are some really true challenges to contend with while you're trying to, make a change. So like I said, I know it's easier said than done. But what I want you to know is that it is possible. If you're feeling like there's more out there, if you're feeling like you want to operate a different way, if you're feeling resentful, if you're feeling like you don't get enough time for yourself, if you're feeling like overwhelmed, exhausted, all the things that many of us midlife moms feel, first of all, you are so not alone. And second of all, you are allowed to make changes and want to make changes. It really is possible. And I promise you, it's so worth it. So that's why I hope you can hear the passion in my voice, because I am so passionate about my mission, which is spreading this message that you get to do and decide what you want and be who you want and do what you want. And I know that probably sounds like selfish and not thinking about, anyone else. Like, how could you do that? But I want to tell you that there's a way that you can still do and be and have what you want and not feel guilty. You really can have it all. You just have to decide, and it's different for everyone. You just have to decide what it is that you want and let go of those things that just aren't serving you anymore. And once you can do that, and once you can also recognize that being a mom or being a woman doesn't necessarily have to be so black and white. I always operated that way. Good girl. I was either good or bad, right? This is the way you do things. These are the rules. And what I learned very early on in my coaching from Carrie and Stacy, who I referenced before, one of the very early messages I learned in my education of coaching, and that I reference to this day, is the fact that it does not have to be either or. Things do not have to be either or. They can be both and. And I think this is a concept that a lot of us struggle with, right? Because we ourselves don't see that duality always pictured or shown, whether it's on social media or from our parents or, generations before us, because we have been conditioned. We have learned ways of being from previous generations. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to be that way. Okay? You can be confident and still be vulnerable. You can be someone who honors her health and still enjoys indulgences. You can live a life of service, being of service to others and thinking about others, and still enjoy the luxuries in life, right? That's how I live. And that's exactly how Peace and Plenty was born. When I was, 5 years ago, thinking about this concept of, wait, well, I'm a good person just because I like nice things and I like to travel and go to fancy dinners. That doesn't mean that I can't also be someone who lives a very faithful life and gives back to my community and does think about others. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be both. And so this concept, this idea of balancing them, I want to put this out into the world, especially to women, especially to moms, because it's time, ladies, it's time to be done with the either or story. It's time for the both and chapter. You can lead the team meeting and leave early to get to the basketball game. You can love your role as a mom and want something more. You're allowed to have it all together, but also ask for help sometimes. We get to choose. We get to rewrite this narrative, right? We get to change these stories and Not only are we doing that for us when you think about it, but we're paving a new way for every generation after us. I think about this all the time. I think about my girls. Our children can watch us redefine the boundaries of what's possible, right? And what's okay. And every time we choose both instead of either or, every time we do that, we're showing them a new way to live. And then guess what? Our daughters inherit our courage to want more and to be brave enough to say, I want something else. And our sons inherit this vision and this image of what women can be, the duality. What a gift. So when you're thinking about making these steps for yourself and living in the and, right? And living with peace and plenty, I want you to really think about who you're doing it for in addition to yourself. It's a win-win. All right, I want to leave you with an action. Here's what you're going to do. I want you to spend the next few days really thinking, or let me take that back, really observing your thoughts. Not thinking, observing what you're thinking. In literacy, we call that metacognition, thinking about your thinking. And I want you to notice, just pay attention. You could write it, jot it down in your notes on your phone. You could, if you have a journal, write it down. If you have a Post-it, whatever, do a voice memo. But I want you to pay attention and let me know, okay? What invisible rules do you realize that you have for yourself? Pay attention, like when you make a choice or you make a decision, like what's behind that? Is it something that you truly want or feel? Or is there something else that has told you that that's the decision you should make? And I also want you to pay attention to when you're judging yourself. And allow yourself to just release that judgment and get curious. That's your job, okay? Just get really curious, pay attention, observe. It's like an experiment. And every Wednesday, a new episode's going to drop. I'll be releasing a new one. And I'm going to give you a small action like this to take every week at the end of every episode. And if you come back week after week, these simple steps will compound, right? And create growth and change. And why I chose Peace and Plenty in 20 is because I know how busy we all are, but I also know how much we love a good podcast, right? Or a motivating audiobook. But so many days we just don't have that hour to devote to it. So here in 20 minutes, while you're commuting, while you're walking the dog, while you're doing dishes, this can be your commitment of doing something good for your mind, your body, and your soul. Because remember, we can get creative in how we do things and rewrite this midlife chapter, doing it a new way, doing it a different way, doing it the peace and plenty way. Until next time, my friends.